Hello and thank you for considering my presentation at the GPSA Research Forum. My name is Nadia Eldermerdash and I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Political Science here at UNLV. Today I'm presenting my project Do Source Country Characteristics Condition the Effects of Remittances? This is a project that forms part of my dissertation and I'm excited to tell you about it. So my interest in this project stems in part from the rapid increase in the size of remittances to developing countries in the last 30 years, coming up to almost $600 billion in 2020. This is particularly interesting because research has shown that remittances are not just financial transfers, but rather they can represent international links between senders and receivers. Those links can transfer with them political attitudes and norms from senders to receivers. And some research has shown that remittances through that process actually increase democratic attitudes among recipients. But this research assumes a democratic source countries, whether it assumes that within the argument or it makes that case explicitly in its selection of cases for analysis. My question then is, does the type of regime of the source country condition how remittances affect recipients' political attitudes? I'm primarily interested in this because although many remittance sending countries are democratic, some are not. Some are actually highly authoritarian, and particularly thinking of the Arab Gulf region, which sends a large number of remittances to countries all over the world, but is highly authoritarian. Therefore, we cannot assume that these remittances will transfer pro-democratic norms. So to test this, I have two hypotheses. My first is that in countries where most remittances come from democracies, remittance receipt will be associated with an increased likelihood of supporting democracy through that norms transfer. But the second hypothesis is then that in countries where most remittances do not come from democracies, where they come from authoritarian states, remittance receipt will be associated with a decreased likelihood of supporting democracy. So I test this using survey data from the Arab Barometer, which analyzes public opinion in Arab countries in the Middle East and North Africa. I'm looking at one of their more recent waves from 2018 to 2019. My independent variable is the frequency of remittance receipt, which is reported by the respondent. I also interact this term with the regime type of the majority source countries. So this is a variable that I created based on the size of the migrant population in various countries around the world from the respondent's country. So for example, looking at Egypt, where are the migrant populations from Egypt? That is where I got that information from, and then decided if the majority of those remittances would then come from democratic or autocratic sources. The dependent variable is agreement with the statement, democracy is the best form of government, so this is a binary variable. I use a multi-level model here with survey sample weights because of the nature of the survey data country to country. My results demonstrate that without the interaction term, remittance receipt is actually associated with a decreased likelihood of supporting democracy. With the interaction term, we can see that the trend overall is the same. So in general, it seems that remittance receipt decreases support for democracy. However, we can see from the blue line, which is the autocracies line, we can see that the decline in likelihood of agreeing with the statement is much larger for autocratic countries compared to democratic countries, which is the green line. In fact, the green line is more neutral than it is anything else. And so this suggests that although yes, the overall trend is the same, nevertheless, we have to consider that the effects of remittances are not just straightforward, rather they are contextualized in the experiences that senders are going through and then transferring. So there does seem to be some effect. However, the overall trend is negative. My next steps will be to explore this further using other types of dependent variables that capture other social norms and political values. Thank you again for your consideration.